Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining into this webinar today about student visas. My name is Sarah Panik, and I'm an Education USA advisor here at the US-UK Fulbright Commission based in London. And we'll be joined today by Mindy Tokuyama from the Consular section at US Embassy London. The webinar today is going to discuss the process of applying for a US student visa, including the timeline, requirements, and answers to some of the most common frequently asked questions. I do ask that you hold all questions until the end. Mindy has a wonderful presentation prepared for you today, and I promise you is going to answer a lot of the questions that you have. So please wait until the end because it could very well be that your question is answered. And then at the end, I'll invite you to put questions into the Q&A box, at which point we'll have some time for Mindy to answer some of those questions for you. I also want to let you know that today's session is being recorded, and I will be emailing out the recording either later this week or at some point next week, so you'll have access to the recording so that you're able to see that. I also want to let you know that you are here today because you are excited to start your journey as a student in the US. We also have some other webinars coming up later this summer that might be relevant to you. We're hosting some pre-departure webinars, and we have a few different ones. We have one aimed specifically for students doing their whole undergraduate degree in the US, one aimed at students who are going to be pursuing their postgraduate degree in the US, and another pre-departure webinar specifically for students taking part in like a short-term study abroad program. So maybe you're going just for a term or for a year. And so those are happening the first week of August, and they're available to sign up for on the events page of our website. So feel free to sign up for those. I'll also send the links to those webinars when I send the recording out to all of you. If you are tuning into this webinar and you have not yet applied for a US study, you may be a little bit ahead of the game. This webinar is specifically for students who have already been accepted at a US university and are planning to start their studies in the upcoming academic year. If you haven't yet applied or been accepted to a US university, you may wish to check out some of our other resources. We have some a study in the US webinar aimed at undergraduate students at the end of July. We've got a postgraduate webinar at the beginning of October. So take a look at our website and check out all of those resources. Our website is fulbright.org.uk. And just to give you a little bit more background before I hand over to Mindy to tell you a little bit more about the US-UK Fulbright Commission and Education USA. So the Fulbright Commission was established more than 70 years ago by a man named Senator Fulbright, who in the aftermath of World War II thought that the best way to promote peace would be to encourage cultural and educational exchange. And he himself had actually studied in the UK as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. And so we're a non-for-profit organization that's jointly funded by the US and UK government to promote peace and cultural understanding through educational exchange. And we do that in a number of different ways. One way is by offering scholarships for postgraduate study and research in the US and the UK. And we also offer an advisory service to assist students, parents, and advisors with applying for US universities. And this advisory service is part of the Education USA network, which is a US Department of State network of over 400 international student advising centers throughout the world. And our aim as Education USA advisors is to offer free and unbiased advice to help UK students study in the US. And we're actually the only official source of US study in the UK. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mindy. And Mindy Tokuyama is Vice Consul in the Consular section at US Embassy London. Most recently, she served as political officer in Rangoon. And prior to joining the Foreign Service, she was a Foreign Affairs officer at the Department of State in Washington, D.C. And previously, she was a Presidential Management Fellow at the Department of Treasury and completed her rotational assignment at US Embassy, Phnom Penh. Raised in Northern California, she has an MA in International Relations and speaks Mandarin, Vietnamese, Cantonese, and studied Burmese. And we're so thankful to Mindy for taking time out of her busy schedule to present this webinar to us today. So without further ado, handing over to you, Mindy. Thank you.
Well, first I wanted to thank Sarah and her team at the US-UK Fulbright Commission and Education USA for having us today, and for you all for joining. So I'll just get right started. So as Sarah mentioned, you're in this webinar because you've already applied to a US institution and you've been accepted, and now you're ready to begin your study journey in America. right? So I will be talking about the steps to get a US student visa to go to the US for your study. All right, so if you are going on an exchange program, either for a year or for a semester, you will work directly with your UK study abroad team here. Let's see, and then if your course of study, your entire course of study is in the US, or you're starting, a bachelor's degree or a master's program in the US, then you'll work with the US institution, and they'll provide you all the necessary documentation for the visa process. All right, so once you have your documentation from those institutions, your next step is to apply for US visa. And I'll explain how to do so, hopefully in 5 easy steps. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so I'll go into each of these 5 steps into more detail shortly, but I'll just highlight some of the top lines of what you need to do to get your US visa. So first, is you'll need your form I-20 or your DS 2019, and which form you get will dictate which visa you get, all right? And that'll be determined by the sponsoring institution in the United States. And I'll discuss that in details in the next slide. Second step is pay your service fee. This will be the first of 2 fees that you pay. Number 3, complete your DS 160 form online. This is your visa application form. 4 is schedule your in-person interview. All right, this is after you do step 1, 2, and 3, and you can do this on the visa appointment website. However, there's a caveat here. If you're eligible for the interview waiver program, you can forego the interview, the in-person interview, and you'll be able to submit your application and then post your documents to us for review. All right, so you don't have to show up, but again, I'll go into all of this in details. And then 5 is, after you complete the paperwork, you show up for your interview, either at the embassy in London or the consulate in Belfast, or for the interview waiver, you can mail your documents in. All right, so that's just top 5. And then next slide, please, Sarah. All right, so again, I mentioned the form I-20 or DS 2019. This is after you've been accepted to a US program and you've decided which one you're attending in the US, you should get an I-20. And that means you'll be applying for an F1 visa or an M1 visa, and you'll get a DS 2019 to apply for a J1 visa. All right, so again, your US sponsoring institution will determine what form you get, and they should provide you the original hard copy of that. The forms will list a variety of information, including the institution, the program that you're participating in, the dates, the duration, as well as signatures from school officials, hence why we need the original documents. Photocopies will not be accepted at your interview, and if you bring in a photocopy, it will delay your visa processing. Next slide, please. All right, so second step is to pay your service fee. SEVIS is the Student and Exchange Visitor Student Exchange Visitor Information System fee. This is a one-time fee paid directly to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It is not paid to the US Embassy in London. So for F1 applicants, the fee is $350. For J1 applicants, it's $220. And for J1 applicants participating in shorter term programs like camp counselor, summer work travel, or au pair programs, those are $35. All right, so after you pay your service fee online, make sure you print out the confirmation. Make sure you print out the confirmation page and bring that to your interview as well. Next slide, please. Third step is completing your DS 160 online. This is the online visa application form, which you can access through the Visa Appointment Service website. After you've created your login and you're in the system, you'll be asked to select 2 locations to choose from, London or Belfast. You can select to interview at either location, depending on where you are, whatever is convenient for you. And then appointment availability will obviously depend on which location you select. All right. And the form itself is dynamic, and so your questions will depend on your circumstances and how you answer them. So if you have any trouble or if you're confused on certain questions, just answer them to the best of your ability. You can raise any discrepancies or issues at your interview with the consular officer. One thing I do want to note is that when you're asked about your educational institutions that you've attended, please list all universities or all schools that you've attended since age 11. Be as thorough as you can. And next slide, please. All right, so continuing on the DS-160, please use a desktop or a laptop computer when completing this form. I actually don't know if it works or it won't work as well if you use a tablet or a mobile device. And after you've completed the DS-160 and submitted it, make sure that you print out the confirmation page. It'll have your name, your photo, as well as the barcode and your DS-160 number. So you'll need that to bring that to your interview. Make sure you save your DS-160 number as well. You'll need that to log back into the system if you want to make any changes to your application, all right, and to log back in. Okay, so far, you've received your forms from your university, either the I-20 or the DS-2019. You've paid your service fee online and printed out the confirmation, and now you've submitted your DS-160. All right, so next is to book your appointment. Next slide, Sarah. Thank you. So at the time of booking your appointment, you'll be asked to pay the visa appointment fee. This is $160, and this is a second fee next to the service fee that you already paid. All right, so when you're booking your visa appointment, you can select one regional pickup location to retrieve your passport if your visa is approved. There is no extra, the cost is included in your visa fee. However, there's also a home delivery option. There is an additional fee for this, and this can be posted to a UK address only. Unfortunately, we cannot ship a passport to a non-UK address. So for appointments, they are released on a rolling basis. So if at the time of your application and you check and there are no appointments available, just check continuously until you see an appointment available. And I suggest just booking the first available appointment. They are released regularly, but they do they're taken up pretty fast, pretty quickly. All right. So you want to allow yourself plenty of time for your visa appointment to address any concerns, and then to actually get your passport with your valid visa back before you book any before you make any travel arrangements. So this slide is specifically for those who qualify for the interview waiver program. This means you would be eligible to forego the interview, the in-person interview at the embassy if you meet these criteria and you can mail in your documents for a visa. All right, so the first column, you see, it's for citizens or nationals of a visa waiver program participating country. Currently, there are 38 countries in the VWP program, and of which the UK is a participating country. So the first criteria is you must be a resident of the UK and physically present here at the time your application is submitted. All right, and number two is you must have had travel to the US either on ESTA or on a previous visa. It does not have to be the same visa that you're applying to. If you have a tourist visa, that's fine. Three is you've never had an ESTA denial or a visa refusal in the past. And if your visa was refused for administrative processing and you've since been issued a visa, then you would qualify. And lastly, you have no apparent ineligibilities, such as arrests or convictions or any of those things that we should be aware of. And you can also answer no to all of the security background questions. In the second column, sorry, Sarah, I'm not quite done with that one. Sorry. All right, and for the second column, it's for citizens or nationals of countries not in the VWP. So some are similar, but not all. So the first point is you must be a resident in the UK and also physically present here when you apply for the IWP. You also must have been issued a visa in the past, even if it's a different visa class, and provided your fingerprints at the time of your visa application. So if you had a prior visa, but you were under 14 and did not provide your fingerprints, then you actually would not qualify because we do need you to come in for the fingerprints and hence the interview. All right, and then 4 is, again, you have no apparent ineligibility such as arrests or convictions. For third country nationals who are residing in the UK, whether you're studying here or living here, it's not mandatory, but it's helpful if you're applying for IWP to provide a copy of your legal status in the UK, such as your BRP card. And note that even if you meet these criteria and you mail in your documents, your visa approval is still at the discretion of the consular officer reviewing your documents, all right? So you may still be asked to come in for an interview. And at this time, Chinese and Nigerian applicants are not eligible for a waiver, and you must book an in-person interview. So if you find out, if you are determined to qualify for the IWP, and you submit your application, you then be placed into a virtual queue, meaning you'll just pretty much just wait for us or for an email from us. I think the wait time right now is about 1 to 2 weeks, at which point you'll receive an email from us to submit your documents via courier. The documents must be mailed using our contracted DX courier. You cannot use a different courier, nor can you drop off the documents physically at the embassy. Next slide, please. All right, so final step in this is after you've completed all the paperwork is to attend your visa interview on the date and time that you selected. Important documents to make sure you bring with you are the DS 2019 or the I-20, depending again on your visa class. Bring a printout of your status payment confirmation receipt, as well as a printout of your DS-160 confirmation page. Also, make sure that you bring your valid valid passport with you so that we can put the visa in if it's approved. And it's helpful to bring any old passports with you if you've had US visas in them in the past, that they may or may not be requested. And number 5, make sure you bring a photo with you that was taken within the last 6 months. You can find photo specifications on our on the travel.state.gov website. All right, so those are the things to make sure you remember to bring. These are the things that you should definitely not bring. Please leave them at home, all right? So don't bring large bags, laptops, or other prohibited items like weapons. You will be going through security to enter the embassy. So if you bring any of these items, it will delay your entrance and perhaps delay your visa appointment. Do expect to wait at the embassy up to 2 hours. So we suggest don't book things back to back. There may be delays that we won't know about until the day of. So just make sure you give yourself plenty of time to come here and then to wait for your interview. You should come to the interview alone unless you have derivatives applying with you. If you're just getting a J1 visa, just come alone. Don't bring your flight bookings. It's not relevant to the visa interview, and we actually suggest that you do not make any travel arrangements until you have your passport back with a valid US visa. And again, if you have folders or passport covers in your passports, just take them out and then just bring the passport, all right? All right, so the interview itself is actually very quick. The waiting time is definitely going to be longer, but the interview itself is very quick. And you'll find out immediately after your interview whether your visa is approved or refused. If it is approved, the average processing time for your visa is 5 business days, and you should allow an additional 2 to 3 work days for the return of your passport with your visa. If you are refused, you'll get your passport back that day. And for those who qualify for the interview waiver program and you submit your documents through courier, the processing time for that is 21 working days from the date that we receive your documents. All right, and then you should allow an additional couple days for the return of your passport. Again, the bottom line in red, apply as early as you can. Don't book your travel tickets until you have your passport back. We can't guarantee, appointment times, or we can't guarantee when you'll get your passport back. So it's wise to just wait until you have your documents back before you make any arrangements. All right, so under US immigration law, every applicant is presumed to be an immigrant, intending immigrant, until you can demonstrate to the consular officer otherwise at your visa interview. So this is, you'll see this as the 214B refusal, and this is the most common refusal code, which suggests that you may not have provided sufficient evidence or provided sufficient ties to the UK or to your home country. Next code you might see is 221G. This is a refusal code indicating further processing or further documentation might be needed. This refusal class may be overcome if you provide the requested documentation, whereas 214B cannot be overcome and it cannot be appealed. Next slide, Sarah. All right. So going back to 221G, this is the term, this is the code, and we refer to this as administrative processing. I know some of you had questions about this. This just means that we either need to review your documents a little bit further, or we need further documentation, such as if you brought in a photocopy of your DS 2019 or I-20, your case would be put into 221G while we wait for the original form. And while we hope that every applicant who comes in for an interview is approved and receives a visa to study in America, if you are refused at the interview, you'll be provided an explanation and you'll know which code and why you were refused your visa. As I mentioned before, if you are refused 214B, the decision is final and cannot be appealed. If your circumstances change, you're welcome to reapply for your visa, again, by going through the same process. And that actually concludes the main points that I had. I did want to point out a couple important websites for you to know. I'll just go over them very quickly. That may be useful while you go through this. uk.usembassy.gov, that's our embassy website, and all of the information I just went through, you can be found on that website. If you're already in the States and you're looking to verify your status or to make an adjustment of status, you can go to studyinthestates.dhs.gov. If you have any questions regarding OPT, you can go to uscis.gov/OPT. And again, for general questions about travel to the US, as well as if you're looking for photo specifications, you can go to travel.state.gov. And for the visa appointment service, that's where you access your application and make your appointment. That is ais.usvisa-info.com. All right, and we'll dive into the frequently asked questions. First one is, what if I make a mistake on my application form? Don't fret. You're welcome to submit a new DS-160 form, or if it's just minor changes, you can wait until your interview, and you can raise any concerns or discrepancies with the interviewing officer. You do need your login if you do want to log back your DS-160 number to log back into your application to make any changes. If you, for whatever reason, you log in and you can't make any edits, just again raise the any issues at your interview. If you do submit a new DS-160, you do not have to pay another fee. The fee is for the appointment. So the DS-160, you can submit multiple and just pay one fee. Oh. Okay. All right, so can third country nationals apply in the UK? Yes, so the visa application is open to everyone. But know that if you're applying in the UK, the consular officer will be assessing your ties to the UK. So for instance, If you're a national from a third country and you're currently studying in the United Kingdom or you're living here working, then it would make sense for you to apply here. You can select London or Belfast. You are permitted to travel from a third country and apply for a visa interview in London or Belfast. However, know that it is much harder for a consular officer to assess your ties to your home country, and thus whether we'll be able to determine whether you overcome 214B. So when at your interview, you should be able to demonstrate strong ties outside of the United States and strong ties to your home country or to the UK. So do I need to show proof of funds? So when you're applying for study in America, you should have sufficient funding to cover the length of your program. Please bring whatever evidence you have to show that you're able to cover your program, at least to be able to cover the first year. This may or may not be requested at your interview, but it's helpful to have in case it is requested. Next slide, please. What is optional practical training, also known as OPT? So OPT is temporary employment that is directly to your study if you're an F1 student. So you are eligible to apply for OPT through your institution. I should work directly with your US sponsoring institution for this, which allows you 12 months of OPT employment in the US. And for those in the STEM field, you would be eligible for a 24-month extension. Again, on that website, you can find more information on OPT. So have you received my documents sent in via DX Courier for the interview waiver? You can track your application status actually online if you submitted it, if you provided your document to the courier. If the courier has confirmed that your documents have been delivered, then yes, we can also confirm that we have received it, though it may not have been reviewed yet. We don't provide status updates on your application. It'll just be pending until it's either approved or we need more information, but you'll hear from us one way or another. And there is no expedited processing for interview waivers. If your visa is approved through the interview waiver program, you should expect it to take 21 working days, an additional couple of days to get it back. So how soon can I travel and can I expedite processing of my visa? So second question, no, unfortunately, you cannot expedite your visa. And how soon you can travel for both J1 and F1s, you can travel up to 30 days before the date of your program, which is listed on your DS 2019 or your I-20. Again, we cannot expedite your visa, so it's wise to book the earliest available appointment to allow sufficient time to make arrangements. And how long can I stay in the United States? So this depends on which visa class you have. For F1 visa holders, you can travel within the US up to 60 days after your course finishes, and this is the date on your I-20. For J1 holders, it's 30 days after the completion of your program. And the grace period is for travel in preparation for your departure. If you decide to take a trip to Canada or Mexico, you will not be permitted to return to the US with an expired US visa. All right, so hopefully the presentation and the FAQs address most of your questions, but we will open up the floor if you still have burning questions, and hopefully I can answer them.
Thank you so much, Mindy. That information is really informative. And so what I would welcome people to do now is to put your questions in the Q&A box. So if you have any specific questions that Mindy hasn't addressed in the presentation, you can go ahead and answer those. I will probably be looking for questions that are going to be relevant to the majority of you here in the first instance to try and get those answered. And then if there's time for kind of very specific ones, we may get some of those. One of the ones that I just wanted to quickly check in with you, Mindy, was I've said I'm sending this the recording out, and I'll do a little bit of editing beforehand to edit out any technical difficulties. Are you okay with me sending a PDF of the slides as an attachment to them as well, or would you prefer that they just look at the slides in the recording?
Yes, we can share it.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Great, thank you. Okay, so we've got lots of questions coming in, somebody's asking, what if your I-20 was only emailed to you?
Well, you do need a physical copy, so you should talk to your sponsoring institution in the United States, and they should mail you a hard copy. They should know that. In case they don't, make sure you just tell them.
Yeah. Somebody's asking how long the whole visa process takes normally.
So depending on when from the date of your interview, if your visa is approved, then it's about 5 business days for processing of your visa, and then additional 2 to 3 days for return of your passport.
Okay. We have a couple of questions for people who qualified for the interview waiver. So one person is saying that they're eligible for the interview waiver. This means they have to send off their passport, but they need it for the summer from next week. What can they do? And a similar question, somebody's wondering if there's any way to avoid sending it away for 21 days because they have travel booked over the summer and they don't have a 21 working day window in which to be without their passport.
Unfortunately, no. We need the physical passport to put the visa foil in. So if you can't, even if your visa is deemed to be approvable, through the interview waiver program, if you do not have your passport, then your case will be put in 221G and pending until we get the passport. So you would delay your visa processing. So we do need the physical passport with us when you mail in your documents.
Yep. I think you may have answered this, but just to be certain, somebody sent off their documents via the DX courier, and they want to know if they'll get an email from the embassy confirming that their passport and visa application documentation has been received.
I don't believe we send a confirmation email, but you can check your status online.
Check their tracking, their DX courier number. Yep, thank you. Somebody's asking if they can apply for the interview waiver program if they've already booked an appointment.
Yes,
but
if you qualify, but
could it be that they didn't qualify for the interview waiver program and that's why they've booked an appointment?
Yes, yeah, actually. So like I said before, the DS-160 form is dynamic. So if you answered questions a certain way, it would have determined if you qualify for IWP. Visa appointment.
Yeah, they have questions on
it. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so when you book your visa appointment, that's when they'll have questions in there where you answer, and if you answer, however way, it'll direct you to an appointment or whether you qualify for IWP.
Okay, so it could very well be this person didn't qualify for the interview waiver program, and that's why they've had to go ahead and book an appointment.
Right.
This is one that we've already answered. So somebody has all the necessary documents for their interview, but there were no bookings available in July, which is when they were hoping to do it to get the visa on time. And they're saying the earliest date is August the 8th, and what should they do?
So best advice is to just keep checking the appointment website. We release appointments on a rolling basis. And if there are cancellations, you can snatch up those appointments if they're available. But unfortunately, we can't, expedite any visa appointments because your program has already started or will start next week. And hence why we suggest apply as early as possible.
Great, thank you. These two are actually kind of similar. We have Can you still hear me okay? It sounds like you're getting some feedback. Yeah, okay, great. Somebody got an email that says you've successfully completed the US visa application registration process. Based on the information provided, you're not required to attend a consular interview. Due to the high demand of visa applications, they've placed your case in the virtual waiting queue. Does that mean I do not have to go in person, but will post when advised? And then similarly, somebody has been asked to mail their forms to the embassy, but all their friends have been asked to attend interviews. Should they be concerned, or is this normal?
So second question, no, don't be concerned. Actually, if you qualify for the interview waiver program, you might get your passport back if you're approved much sooner than those waiting for an interview. So it's interview dates is a longer wait than those who can mail it in. And the first question was,
so it sounds like they qualify and they've been placed in the virtual waiting room. Does this mean I do not have to go in person, but will post my documents when advised?
Correct. Yes, just waiting for an email and we'll provide you instructions on how to query your documents in.
Okay, thank you. And somebody's qualified for their in-person interview to be waived, and they're wondering if they have to send the original DS 2019 form, and if so, will they be sent it back with their passport and visa via the courier?
Yes, so whether you come in person or you mail your documents, we need original documents. And you will get whatever you send to us back if your visa is, or if it's refused, you'll get all documentation back.
Okay. A couple of questions about the interview process. So if they're doing the in-person interview, any tips for them? Are there any particular common questions that they should be aware of in advance?
So, for so don't be nervous. We're nice people, I promise. But just when you arrive, just make sure you arrive on time, but allow yourself plenty of time to at the embassy. Like I mentioned before, while the interview itself is very quick, literally just a few minutes, waiting can be quite a bit of time. So you're welcome to bring a book. You can bring a laptop, but you're welcome to bring a book to read. And just in terms of preparing for your interview, make sure you have all your documentation ready. If you come in and you don't have a form, then we cannot issue your visa. Then your case would be put in administrative processing. So just come prepared with all your documentation, and we would explain why you want to study in the US, why you chose the school you did, and how your funding sources, and pretty much everything. And the documentation should be able to explain what's in there, why you choose the program, what you're studying, and all of that.
Great, thank you. For somebody applying for a J1 visa, they're asking what evidence is needed to show their intent to return to the UK after the exchange year.
So we're not looking for quite like any physical evidence, such as in any paper, but it's you need to demonstrate your ties to the UK, such as, if you're continuing university here, you have to come back for school, right? So you have stronger ties. So if you have family here, your whole family is here. If you have employment in the UK, if you already have, if your family's here, you own property, you have a reason to come back and not stay in America after your program.
Great, thank you. Another question from a student who's applying for a short-term program. If they're starting their course in January, should they still apply for a visa now, or should they apply closer to when they're going to the US?
January of 2023, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's right.
Apply as soon as you can.
Because you've got all that paperwork, and then you've given yourself all the time that you need.
Yeah, then you won't be stressed at the end. Yeah.
Somebody is asking about expediting the visa process because they've read online that because it's a student visa for educational purposes, that the embassy is fast tracking student visas, and asking about that.
So it's not necessarily fast tracking or expediting. Student visas, they're their own category, so they're released on a different. They're released differently than other visas. So we do prioritize student visas because we do want you to get to your program on time for your studies. However, we can only expedite appointments for humanitarian reasons, And so you can request an expedited appointment after you've submitted your application, and then there will be a process for that, and you need to submit a compelling humanitarian reason to do so. But if it's because your program is starting next week and you need a visa appointment, unfortunately, that is not a humanitarian reason.
So just to reiterate, because I suspect I have this question, if somebody is looking to book an appointment time and the earliest appointment isn't available until after their course starts, so let's say they start August 14th and there isn't an appointment until August 18th, what would your advice be in that case?
It's, just check the appointments regularly.
Okay.
People do cancel, and so you might be able to snatch up, appointment tomorrow if someone cancels. But
Okay.
I think it's up to you to just secure that and check regularly.
Okay, but there isn't a case of expediting a visa appointment if there's a start date that's.
I wish there was, but unfortunately, no.
Okay. Somebody is wondering if so they've been given the option to do the waive the visa interview, but they're wondering if they can just do the interview instead, because they think it might be easier and quicker to do the interview in person. So for people who are given the waiver, are they still able to choose to come to do a in-person interview?
Okay. So if they want to change from interview waiver to an in-person interview, then you should contact the visa appointment service, and they can work with them on that.
All right, and to contact the visa appointment service, they've got the contact details from filling out the form and all of that?
Correct.
Yeah, perfect. Not sure if you'll know this off the top of your head, but do you happen to know the current waiting time to get a visa interview in London?
I actually don't. It changes regularly, so I don't have an answer for it.
I think there may be a website online where you can check the waiting time. So I'll see if like a government website. So if I can find it. Yeah.
We are, trying to increase our appointment availability to pre-COVID times. So we are working on that, and we are releasing appointments on a regular basis.
Okay. If a student has applied for the wrong type of visa, for example, a J1 work exchange visitor instead of a student non-degree, how should they proceed? Do they need to begin a brand new application?
I think it's just J1 is J1. So your DS-29, if it's a J visa, then your DS-2019 will tell you what program you're doing. But on the application itself, it wouldn't matter. J1 is J1.
And somebody's asking how long they should expect to wait until they receive information from the U.S. Embassy about booking an appointment. So I would imagine that it's not clear in this question, but perhaps they've completed the online form and they're waiting to find out if they should book an appointment or not.
I mean, so if you've submitted your DS-160, you should be directed to the appointment site and be able to look at appointments immediately.
Okay, and then once they're on that site, it will either give them an interview waiver or give them the option to book an interview on that site. Okay, so perhaps they're just missing that step of going to that site once they've submitted that DS-160.
Yeah, you want to go in and book. Yeah, you should be able to do it.
Okay. Some websites mention it can take up to 2 months for a visa to be sent back to you. Is this usual?
So every case is individual, all right, but normal processing time is 5 business days, an additional couple of days to return of your passport.
Okay. Yeah, and then a similar question. Somebody's application said that it could take 45 to 51 working days for them to receive their application approval. However, the website and yourself said 21 days, and so they're wondering if they've misunderstood something. But I'm guessing it just varies.
Yeah, the average again for interview waiver, once we receive your documents, it is approximately 21 working days for processing. If you're here for an in-person interview and your visa is approved, it's 3 to 5 business days.
Okay.
But also again, it's case by case, and if you're pending documentation, obviously that would delay your processing.
Okay. So a different mistake than the one mentioned earlier. What if a student applied for an F1 instead of a J1 by mistake?
Okay, so you would contact the visa appointment service to change it and then submit a new DS 160.
Okay. Thank you. For the visa waiver program, how soon do you have to send the documents after being accepted? This person's going to be out of the country until August. Can they apply now and then send the documents when they return?
I believe so. I don't think there's a cutoff that you have to send it in by, but then again, it would just push your processing time back. The sooner we get your documents, once we ask for it, then the sooner we can move forward with it.
Yeah. This person's asking when they can expect to receive the DS 2019, or they've said DS 20, but I'm wondering if they mean the I-20. And I believe this comes from the institution where they're studying. Is that correct?
Correct. It should come from your U.S. sponsoring institution, not from the embassy.
So you'll want to get in, the person who asked this question, you're going to want to get in touch with your U.S. sponsoring institution because they're the ones that are going to be providing this form to you for your visa. Somebody says they've already booked an appointment for a visa meeting, but they meet the criteria for an interview waiver. What should they do?
Can you repeat the question, Sarah?
Yeah, so that I've already booked an appointment for a J1 visa meeting, but I meet the criteria for an interview waiver. What should I do?
Yeah, so you can contact the visa appointment service, but then again, when you were booking your appointment, you would have answered certain questions to ensure that you qualify, or if you don't qualify for the interview waiver.
Yeah, so if you've been, it's for the student who's asking this, if you've been instructed to book an appointment, it might be that the way that you answered the questions, even if you feel like you're qualified, that you've been deemed ineligible for this particular service. So you'll want to follow the instructions that you were given to attend the appointment. Can a citizen from another country, such as Nigeria, follow these steps to obtain a student US visa?
Yes. Yeah. The visa application process is open to everyone. But again, you need to demonstrate if you're applying in London or Belfast, you need to demonstrate your ties to the UK.
Yeah. Somebody's asking a question, which I think we've answered already. They work with students who are going abroad, and some of them have been asked to go to an interview, but the earliest appointment is for after they need to arrive at their host university. They had an expedited appointment request denied. Can they make an expedited appointment request again?
If it was denied the first time, it will be denied the second time, unfortunately.
So these students should keep checking back.
Just keep checking the appointment website.
Okay. When you talk about 21 working days, do they include only Monday to Friday and not weekends?
Yes, excluding US and UK holidays.
All right, so I noticed we're coming up on time. We still have loads of questions, so I'm just going to take a look to see if there's any. Some of these are kind of repeats about. Somebody's asking who the SEVIS fee is paid to.
So that is to ICE. That is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Cool. I'm just checking to see. Somebody's asking, do we still pay the $160 if you qualify for the visa waiver program?
Yes.
More questions about. Somebody's wondering if they don't get their visa back in time to start their studies in the US, are US universities used to this, and will they accommodate students arriving late for this reason? Not sure if you've got insight into this or not.
I do not. Unfortunately, you have to talk to the institution in the US on
that. Somebody's asking which type of J1 visa is required for a study exchange year. Is professional/scholar correct?
So it's it should be, so when you apply online, a J1 is a J1. So I don't think it differentiates.
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
But they don't differentiate between two, but
Mm.
they can talk about it, but yeah, they should check.
Okay.
That way.
Okay. Sorry. So if you apply for the wrong, sorry. So there are there are classifications to J1. However, if you did apply for the wrong J1, just raise it at your interview.
Okay. And for students who are going abroad to a short-term program, such as Camp America, but then are staying in the US to study abroad for a year, does this mean that they'll need to apply for 2 separate visas?
Yes. And so we cannot issue two J1 visas concurrently. So you should apply for your first visa for your first program. And if you're accepted, attend that program. And I guess you may have 2 options. You can either depart the US and come back to the UK and apply for another J1 visa, or you can bring it's J1, so you can bring your DS 2019, and you can adjust that with the CPP officer at the point of entry. And they, depending, I can't say whether they'll admit you for a certain time, but you can adjust that with them.
Okay. Sorry to bring this up one more time, but somebody's noting on the current US Embassy website, it states that expedited appointments can be considered for humanitarian reasons, but also because an applicant for a student or exchange visitor visa who has a start date that is earlier than the first available visa appointment. And they're saying, is this information on the website now out of date?
Sorry, unfortunately, that is out of date.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, thank you. And okay, I think we'll do one more question and then we will wrap up. Somebody's wondering if they can book an appointment while they wait for their I-20 to arrive so that they can secure an appointment date.
You may not know what visa you need if you don't have your documents. You can if you know, I suppose, but you may not know which program or which visa you need.
Yeah. All right. And then I've had a few questions about when the recording and the slides are going to be sent out. So I'm going to aim to send it out this week. But if not this week, then next week, because I'm going to be trying to do some editing to edit out any technical difficulties before I send. And so you'll have access to this information next week. But is there anything else, Mindy, that you felt like, something that we haven't asked you that we feel like we should have asked you?
I mean, just to reiterate, yeah, don't be nervous when you come. Just come prepared though with all your documentation. And again, just apply as early as you can, just to save yourself the any stress at the end. All right. And yeah, but just come prepared.
All right, great. Well, Mindy, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule to come and speak with us today. We're so appreciative of it. And I want to thank all of you that have been tuning in for your patience with us as we worked through any technical difficulties, but I'm glad that we were able to finish the presentation and to get a lot of your questions answered. And I look forward to reaching out to all of you with the link to this recording. I'll also include, Mindy read off a couple of really helpful links at the end of her presentation, so I'll include the links in the email that I sent to you so that you've got those links available to you, and also links for our upcoming pre-departure webinars at the beginning of August, in case any of you would like to sign up for any of those sessions, where we'll have some student speakers who are currently in the US or have studied in the US previously to share their experiences, and you'll have the chance to speak to them and ask them any questions you might have. But thank you, Mindy, for your time today, and thank you all for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.